Shosholoza, shosholoza, kulezondaba stimela sibume South Africa. Shosholoza, shosholoza, kulezondaba stimela sibume South Africa. Shosholoza, shosholoza, kulezondaba stimela sibume South Africa.
So 3 days after I landed, I got really sick and I landed up in the hospital. Now the hospital, like, what is happening? There is a section for citizens and non-citizens. So residents, citizens, male, female. Like, I was like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean there's a section for men and there's a section for women? What does this mean? Like, what is happening here?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Voice of Solutions podcast. And for those of you coming here for this first time, my name is Avi Wemkorwana. In this podcast, we look at issues that are facing South Africa and try to be a voice of voices that are trying to discuss solutions in trying to solve those problems. We have this series of South Africans abroad and back, which speaks to the issue of immigration, where it highlights some of the signals that people are not happy with South Africa or they are happy with South Africa in comparison to other countries and coming back to the country. Today, we are joined by Wilma, a South African back in SA, the interesting part. She's back in South Africa. Wilma, welcome to Voice of Solutions podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm good, thanks. How are you? It's been a while.
It's been a while. I know. It's been a while. So I didn't even say you're back from where. It will be an interesting part. But just for now, can you please just give a little bit of introduction for yourself? Can you please just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, so I'm Wilma. Surname has changed now, everywhere. In South Africa. So I'm Wilma Alawi, South African born and raised. I am biracial though, so my mom is Tswana, father is Dutch from Netherlands, not South African. I grew up born in the Northwest and then moved to Gauteng when I was about 3. So basically, I'm a Joburg girl. I am married, have a young son, literally a few months old, and 3 cats. And I'm back in South Africa now, as you know. Moved from Qatar.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting.
I was a recruitment professional in Qatar. And that's basically my professional history, is just being in recruitment in South Africa, in Qatar, and now back in South Africa, still in the industry of recruitment. So just a short brief about me.
Sure, interesting. That's interesting. So you will start getting questions about, can you plug me? Do you have any roles?
That's all right.
Guys, so here is a plug. Here is a plug. So I don't have to tell you everything. Okay, so do you mind sharing your previous surname? What is your surname again?
Yes, my original surname was Spitzbart, which is my father's surname.
Oh, you said you were born in Northwest. Where in Northwest were you born? Where exactly in Northwest?
Yeah, so I was actually born in a town called Mokgwasi.
Okay.
And at the time, my mom lived there because she worked in Sun City. And my dad was in Joburg because at the time they weren't allowed to live together yet, being of 2 different races. So I was born in Mokgwasi. Dad used to come on weekends to come visit. That's why I was born in the Northwest, just where my mom worked, out of Joburg.
Interesting. So did you grew up in that place called Mokgwasi for how long? For how long did you grow up there? For how long were you there for?
It was only about 3 years that I was there. My sister and my mom were there for a bit longer, because I have an older sister. But when I turned about 3, we moved back to Johannesburg. So it wasn't very long. I don't remember anything. I actually
Yeah.
went past it when I was I think I was about 13 or 12 or so. I went there because I went on holiday with my uncle to Sun City and he knew where it was. So I just went around to go and see where I was born, but I remember nothing of that place.
So now you moved to Joburg and you start school in Joburg, basically, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I started creche in Joburg, primary school, all Catholic schools. I'm Catholic. High school, Catholic schools. So yeah, that's my whole journey has really been in Johannesburg. Nothing interesting about that, but
Yeah. Which side of Joburg was this? South, north,
okay.
east?
So it varies. So my parents actually
Yeah.
got divorced when I was 10. So then the family obviously split. And so my dad was always in like near Eastgate, but not quite on the east side, more like towards, I don't know if you know Observatory, like it's an old suburb
Sure. I know.
from
Yeah.
back in the day.
By Port side. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Port.
he stayed that side. And then my mom was sort of in the area. Then we moved here to the West Rand, and then we moved back to that side as well, because it all depended on where mom worked, really. That would make sense in terms of schools, transport, and all of that, because we didn't have a car. Only dad had a car. Mom didn't have a car, so it was always public transport for us.
Oh, no, I understood. So, in terms of this move, you were changing schools. Am I correct to say then you would have changed schools a lot that time?
So I think the primary school years was quite a bit, well, not as much as I guess other people would say, but I didn't have one primary school. So I started off at Maryvale College, which is it's near Highlands North. So it's on like a main road called Louis Botha, if anyone knows that. So I was at Maryvale
Yeah.
College for a few years. Then I went to De La Salle, which is in Linden, for I think 2 years or so. Then I went to St. Catherine's Convent, which was in the West End. It's here in Florida. And then from St. Catherine's, I moved back to Maryvale for my high school. So it's 3 schools in essence, because I started at Maryvale and went back to Maryvale. But yeah, it was a few changes in primary school. But high school was just one.
So, how was you adapting when you changed the environments? What would be the experience? Would you prefer to have your child going into a single school up until the end, or it's fine, it's not a big deal for them to change schools? What's your opinion on that? That's your experience with that.
So, I must be honest, it didn't really affect me that much. However, having the stability of one school, like high school, was very different, because I was in the same high school from grade 8 until matric, which was great, because you have the same friends, the teachers, you can focus. It's not about now you have to get to know new people, new friends, new way of learning, new way of teaching, that sort of thing. So I would prefer for my child to be able to do one school throughout, but that's not always the case. It's not always going to work out that way. So
100%. And the reason I'm asking that is that we discussing an issue of immigration, like people moving around, and one of the reasons people think twice when they think of moving is that my children will be changing school, and how is that experience for them? So that's why I'm just asking that. And obviously, it's times change, but obviously the experience would closely be the same. Now, okay, how was the schooling experience for you? Now you go to high school. How, if you had to describe yourself as a child in school, how was that for you?
So I've always had a bit of a crazy streak to me, but also quite focused as well. So, like I would always be the funny, or like I had this thing of, like in high school especially, I had this thing of, when people try and bully you or something like that, then I would like retaliate with what we used to call a diss. So I'd have a very sharp tongue towards people, quite a lot. in high school, which I don't do anymore, thank God. I grew out of that. But yeah, I had quite a sharp time in high school, and I knew how to really sometimes make people feel really bad. But it wasn't. I tried not to. It wasn't out of nowhere that I'd just come and start. Chatting nonsense to you. It was more of a defense mechanism.
Yeah,
most of the time.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was fine, really. I became head girl, which was interesting.
Oh, it was good. Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I was like a major academic. I was the smartest. I was getting colors and all of that. No, I was okay. Like my parents also never pressurized me so much to, get distinctions and all of that. Like they were just like pass, do your best and pass, kind of thing. But most of the time you never try your best, to be honest. When you're in high
Yeah.
school, you're just like, let me just get through it and continue. So yeah, I mean, I can't say I was a major academic or anything like that, but yeah, I guess teachers saw some leadership qualities in me at the time. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Now you go ahead, you finish high school, and can you take us through that? Your high school, and then when
Yeah.
you finished high school, what happened?
Yeah, so after finishing high school, I went to University of Johannesburg. So it's the RAW side of things. I studied corporate communication. Did it in the 3 years because I was just like, I want to be done with school. I'm so done with school. I'd actually tried to get
Yeah.
out of studying at the time. I tried to get out of it because at that time I was quite like slim and trim and, good for being an air hostess, they call it cabin crew now. And I said to my mom, let me go and be cabin crew, like this afternoon chick. Let me go be cabin crew. And then from there, I'll study part-time or whatever. My mom was like, you finish your degree, you get your paper. Once you have your degree, you can do whatever you want. I don't care what you do, just get your degree. And I was like, okay, fine. But by the time I finished varsity, a bit, wouldn't say the aesthetic for a cabin crew.
Yeah. So would you say it was important for your mom to take you through that direction, that you need a qualification regardless of what you want to really do?
Yeah,
Now
100%.
reflecting
100%.
back, yeah.
Look, I think that, at the time I was just like, are you kidding me? I can always study later, But these days I'm like, thank God she actually made me do that, because I don't know if I would have gone back to study. Once you taste working, you taste money, freedom, going out, you don't want to be sitting and hitting the books. You know what I mean? It's not that you definitely don't want to be doing that, So thank goodness, that pushed me to do that. And she was just like, do something. It doesn't matter. Because, sometimes at that age, you don't really know what you want to do. So I was between studying HR or marketing or advertising. Like I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Hence I did corporate communication, because it like encompassed a few elements of like communication, marketing, a PR, and a bit of psychology as well. Because then I also was thinking, do I want to do psychology, but do I actually want to go all the way and be a psychologist? Not really sure, don't really want to do industrial psychology. So, you at that time, and I finished school a year early, so I wasn't even 18. I was 16. I turned 17 in matric. My mind wasn't focused on what exactly I wanted to do at that time. And when you're small and growing up, you're like, I want to be a doctor and a dentist and a this and a that. And I remember my niece actually found one of my old school projects the other day, and I said I wanted to be a bank manager. And I was like, where did that even come from? But yeah, I mean, you change your mind so many times growing up. You don't really know. Sometimes you don't really know what you want to do. So my mom was like, just pick something that you're going to finish. And then, let's do that, get that paper first, and then you can do whatever you want after that, which I'm grateful for now. Yeah.
We're just like the little ones, right? If my daughter, if today she's listening to piano or something, she enjoys something, then she'll say, "No, I want to be a pianist," and then
Exactly.
and the next moment she wants to be something else. Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I fully understand. So, how was the university for you?
Thoroughly enjoyed university. I enjoyed university to the fullest. I was partying, I was studying, I was meeting people from different parts of the country. Because remember, I'd been in Joburg for the whole time, the only time I'd been out is like to Durban twice and maybe to Northwest to see family. Because my mom's side of the family, they're from Rustenburg. But I mean, her siblings live in Soweto, so we don't really leave, this environment. So literally, I was meeting people from different parts of the country that were at university. We were partying, we were having a good time. I enjoyed myself a lot, but I also didn't lose sight of the academic side. So that's why I was able to complete my degree at the time in the 3 years that they put aside for it. I did it in the 3 years. Now and again I had a SAP or had to repeat one or two things, but actually I only repeated one thing. Yeah. But I was able to balance, the partying, the good time. But I really, really enjoyed my time in university. Really did.
That's great. So capturing your your schooling and university, and also in general in the society, how was it growing up in a multiracial home? If you are comfortable sharing that.
Mm. Of course, yeah. It's one of my big things. I love it. So, there was a time in primary school where I did experience, that's the first time I experienced like some sort of racism at all. Because I won't mention which school it was, but I'd gone there and I was the darkest person in the class. So one of the people were just like, one of the kids in the school, I don't know what transpired, but I always remember he was like, yeah, you crash landed in the wrong place. This is not for you. Like, this school's not for
Mm,
you.
mm,
And I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, because I was so oblivious to the fact that not every family looks kind of like me. And I didn't really look in the mirror and think, Wilma, you're not 100% black. Like, you're not 100% white. Like, you're different. Um, so it didn't hit me until then, but it was like early primary school. I would say probably grade 4 or 5, something like that. But yeah, so that was a bit of a shock. And then I remember going home and telling my parents, and they were like, that is disgusting. And it became a whole thing, at the school and stuff, because they were just like, they knew exactly what it was. I didn't quite at the time. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting because now, when you look back on it, I think when I got older and I realized what had happened, and I look back on it, I was just like, interesting, because kids don't just pick that up out of nowhere. That kind of is I think something from a home discussion. So, I can't blame the kid, at the time. And I don't think my parents blamed the kid either. They were just like, can we, like, this is not something that we want our kid to be involved in. So it never struck me until then. And then obviously getting older, then I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely, not 100%. I don't speak an African language 100%. Yes, I can speak Tswana a bit. I do understand it because that's my mother's family side. They speak Tswana. And obviously being in Joburg, I've learned to pick up Zulu. Don't ask me to speak Zulu. It's terrible. My Zulu is terrible. I get what someone is saying if they're trying to converse with me in Zulu. I get it. And most of the time I either respond in English or Tswana, whatever the case is. But it's tough if you don't really have the support as a young person. Like, I had both my parents supporting me from both sides. So my dad's view of it was always, you're not a color, you are Dutch. So he's obviously, I mentioned he was from Netherlands. So for him, he was always like, you're not a color, you're Dutch. You're not a color, you're Dutch. So I grew up with that, in the back of my mind. So for me, I was never color, and I wasn't from this really different family, which was multiracial. Like, oh wow, and think about it, as a kid, it never struck me that my white father was hanging out here in Soweto during our family functions. It never hit me until people would be like, oh, okay, staring like, who's that white guy at that house? It never really
Yeah.
bothered me until you see from other people. Then you're like, oh, right, okay, different races,
Mm-mm.
different races. But it also gave me an opportunity to see things from different sides as well. I always grew up with that sort of being able to be open to people of different cultures, to be open to people from different countries. Even now, I'm not married to a South African either. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like filtered through, where I am so open to different people from different environments, just because, I guess, of my family background as well.
So yeah, you finished university now, and then what did you do? Did you go straight to corporate? Did you had some gap years? What happened? Just capture that for us.
Yeah, very interesting story. So at the time, Facebook was a thing. Still a big thing.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
actually on like I think it was Facebook chat. Like there was a live chat or something on Facebook that you
Okay.
could do, if I remember correctly. Either that or it was like Gmail chat or something like that. Anyway, so I was on my computer at home, and I was busy looking for jobs. Now, most people know it's not that easy for a fresh grad with no experience. Now you're looking for a job. So I was busy applying for roles, and a mutual friend, a friend of mine, had said to me, "Hey, what you doing? What are you up to? Are you still at varsity?" And I said, "No, I've finished. I'm literally just waiting to graduate, but I'm applying for jobs." And he's like, "Oh, okay. I don't know how you feel about it, but a friend of his had posted a job for a receptionist at a recruitment agency." So I said, yeah, of course, I'm not going to be picky about, getting a job in the industry that I've studied. Like, I know it's not going to be easy at all. I don't have experience. Why would they hire me, right? So I went and applied for that job. I sent my CV through, called me for an interview, and I got the job. So I started my career as a receptionist at a recruitment agency. And a lot of people were like, but why did you do that? You finished university, you could have started somewhere else. And I said, yeah, but I was also living at home with a single mom. At the time, obviously, dad had stopped paying, maintenance, because now I'm like 20 or something and I'm finished university. It's like, no, you actually just need to get a job. That's where my life started. Receptionist at a recruitment agency.
Interesting. So you are a receptionist then now. How did you then move to be a recruiter yourself? Did you do that on the same company or?
No,
Can you take
actually,
us through that?
the funny story is that I actually never wanted to be a recruiter at an agency, because as a recruiter at an agency, you have targets, you have desk costs, which I'll explain as well. So it's super high pressure. It's almost like being in a sales environment, and that's really not my thing. Like sales, and I always say this, and I always say it sounds so bad, but it's true. I can't sell things, but I can sell people. So I can sell a person's profile to a hiring manager, but don't ask me to sell this
Sell a
glass
product.
to someone. No.
Yeah.
I can, if I haven't used it and I don't love it, I cannot sell the product. I can't do it. So
Yeah.
from being a receptionist, I then, in that same organization that I joined in the beginning, that agency, I then became admin manager. So I built a team of administrators that reported to me there. There was about 4 administrators that I'd hired at the time, and they were all reporting to me. And then I was like sort of coordinating with all the recruitment consultants that worked in the agency. So whatever had come through. So in an agency environment, your CV gets redone by the agency, right? When it gets sent off to a client. Your criminal credit, all those checks get done by the agency. An initial sort of screening interviews done by the agency, as well as references get done by the agency, right? So, and then an initial interview, but in most agencies, but that's sort of how it works. So that all of that involves admin, right? So that's why we had a team of administrators. So a consultant would bring me a CV, say, I need this redone by today at 3 o'clock because I'm submitting the shortlist. So then I would then say, okay, this person is available to do this. That one needs to do the reference. That one could do the credit checks. So it was basically a coordination / supervisory role as well, because I just needed to make sure all the administrators were doing what they needed to do. I was also busy. I was doing invoicing as well, working with the accountant to make sure all the invoicing is up to date. I remember even I was going to SARS at some point with files and files and files because that agency had done something. It looked like the agency had done something incorrect, and then they were charged, and it was just craziness. So I had to go and like basically fix, everything that had happened, which was so out of my depth because I'm not a numbers person, but I managed to do it anyway. So I always ran away from being a recruiter. I was just like, no, let me just do the admin. Let me just do the admin. Let me research. But then whilst I was still in that role, there were little roles that would come up from companies like our clients that were like, an administrator, a receptionist, like those kind of, type of roles that would come up, and no consultant wants to work it because there's no money in it per se. So I would work those roles then because I knew the process of how to do everything. So then I would do reception roles, administration roles, and that sort of thing for our clients. So as a consultant at an agency, you have this thing called the desk cost. Sometimes it's 3 times your salary, sometimes it's 5 times your salary. So what needs to happen is you need to make placements worth, let's say your salary is 10,000 Rand, your desk cost is 50,000 Rand times 5, right? So your desk cost is 50,000 Rand. So if you make a placement worth 100,000, 50,000 straight goes to the agency because that's your desk cost. You need to cover that. All right. And then the other 50, then you get a percentage of that as your commission that you then get after 3 months. So do you see, like if you don't make a placement that's 5 times or 3 times your salary every month, it then builds up. So if you don't make it this month, then next month it then becomes 100,000. Then if you don't, then it becomes 150,000. So like it builds up, and you just need to consistently make placements in order to actually get com and cover your desk costs. And at some agencies, at a certain point, if you're not covering your desk costs, then it's a matter of you need to leave.
Yeah, you're not meeting expectations.
Exactly. So I was like, I don't need that stress in my life. Like, no, thank you. No. So I just remained like researching and doing the roles that didn't bring in that much money. So I still made commission. I just didn't have a desk cost. I was then headhunted by another agency to come and redo the admin process and to be a researcher as well. So this was after about 3 years or so. Went to a different agency. Still till this day, I don't know how they found out about me. They said that someone had, referred me. I still don't know who it was. It was long ago, but I still have no idea who it was. And I went there and I was more a researcher than admin. So in the beginning, I did admin. So I I went basically back to typing CVs, doing references and stuff, but most of my role then became a researcher. So researchers in the recruitment industry will then be the ones, researchers or sourcing specialists, they call them as well, would then be the ones to go and, like, a consultant comes with a spec, job spec, and says, hey guys, this client needs A, B, C, D. You sit with the consultant, you get her notes or his notes, whatever it is. Then you go onto the LinkedIns and the PNets and the whatever else that you use to source, create adverts through the websites, whatever the case is. And then the sources will then source a list of candidates for the consultant to do review and see, okay, they want this person, that person. So that's what I did at the second agency I worked at. From there, I then left that agency because I wasn't doing very well, and now I was on my own. I wasn't living at home anymore. I had to pay rent, I had to pay bills, little cell phone contracts, and I was like, I'm not taking this chance of going down with it. So then went to a mine. I worked for a mine as a receptionist again.
Interesting.
And I don't know. I took that time to also like reevaluate, is recruitment really what I want to do? Or do I want to get more into what I studied, So at the mine, there was one of the guys that worked at the mine. I can't remember his title per se, but he was into the PR stuff for the mine. And then I started kind of working with him, etc. And that was slowly starting to build up, and there was also potential for me to move with the mine to Rustenburg, because the mine is in Rustenburg. So there was also that talk of me potentially making that move to go work at the mines offices in Rustenburg. And obviously the question was, why would you leave Joburg and come to Rustenburg? Because all the Rustenburg people were wanting to come to Joburg. Okay, I don't mean that in general, but I'm just saying from the people that I spoke to that worked there. And I was just like, why not? Why not move to a different part of the country? Like, it's not far. It's 2 hours or so, drive. It's really not that bad. So I was up for it. I was like, okay, sure. But then, once again, things happen at the mine. And then I was like, okay, get retrenched. It is what it is. Sit at home for about a month. I think that time I had just moved back in with my dad. So I was living with my dad at the time, just for a short time. When you're young and wild and free and spend a bit too much than you should, and then you realize that all your bills have caught up to you. Then I was like, you know what? No, I need let me just go back to dad. So I went to go stay with my dad so that I didn't have to pay rent. So I thought. I did have to pay rent, but it wasn't a lot compared to what I was at the time. But go back, reset with that. It was supposed to be for like, I think 6 months. It ended up being years. I think, how many years was it? My goodness. I think it ended up being 3 years or 4 years, something like that I ended up staying. So it was like weird. It was crazy.
How difficult was it now, staying with your dad at that age, back to what's it then controlling you again? Now you don't have freedom anymore.
Not at all. My dad was amazing. Like, I was so close with my dad, even though my parents split when I was little, but I was always super close with my dad. Even in adulthood, my dad was awesome. He wouldn't mind like going out partying, drinking, whatever the case is. He wouldn't mind at all. Like, he used to buy me, like, he would go to the bottle store, whatever, and then he'd come back and be like, I bought you beer, or I bought you wine, or whatever. So he was super cool, like chill, didn't mind, as long as I was safe. That was always his thing. He was always like, just tell me that you're safe. Just let me know where you are. If you're fine, that's it, Like, I remember one weekend I'd gone to Soweto, but not family, friends. I literally left Friday after work and I came home Sunday. And he was just, that time he got mad because he was like, you haven't told me that you're safe, you know? But he was like, enjoy yourself. Like, you young, you're supposed to be living and enjoying life. I mean, my dad, you know, enjoyed his life a lot, you know. So he was super. He was super. And at the time I'd bought a car. So I was mobile, so he didn't have to worry about me too much, you know, going on public transport
Sure.
and stuff. So he was like, okay, you got your car, just make sure if you're drinking, don't drive, you know, stay where you are and just call me and tell me that you're staying there, and that's it, you know. So I had
Yeah.
freedom. I was like, oh, I should have moved in with dad long ago, but
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So yeah, so you are back now staying with him, you said, and that ended up being 3 years, and you taking from there.
yeah. So ended up staying there for about 3-4 years. I can't remember. It was 3-4 years. So thankfully, when I was retrenched from the mine, I was at home, so I didn't necessarily have to stress myself with, you know, getting a job immediately. So I did stay at home for about a month. And then I got a call from a person that I worked with at the agency before the mine. And she was like, I heard you on, you know, the market again. And I said, yes, I am. And she was like, well, we're looking for a researcher. So can you come for an interview? So I said, yeah, of course, no problem. So I went through for an interview. Thankfully, got the job once again. And I started like the next day, which was crazy. But I started the next
You are
day.
available anyway.
Yeah, look, I started the next day at the agency as a researcher. You know, I kind of knew how to do things anyway. So it was just about meeting the new consultants, very small boutique agency as well. So I never worked for the huge agencies that people know, you know, in SA. I worked for smaller sort of boutique agencies. So worked there. It was great. I then, because they had a client, one of the big 4 banks was their client at the time, and they needed someone to come in, and basically I was seconded to one of their clients, which was a big bank,
Yeah.
which is a big bank in South Africa. So I was seconded there. Supposed to be like a few months as well, maybe 3 months or so. Ended up staying there for like 4 years, but I wasn't seconded the whole time. So I eventually, because, you know, obviously as an agent, they have to make money out of a placement. So I was basically a placement. So I worked there, but I wasn't earning like the other consultants. Now I was a full recruitment consultant, right? Because at a bank or at corporate, you don't have a desk cost as a recruitment specialist. So as a recruitment consultant, there's no such thing as desk costs. You work for the company, but you also don't earn commission, right? So it's you basically are helping the business shape the business, build teams, etc. It's not about placement, sales, this, that. It's not like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's more about getting the right person for the right role at the right time, etc. So I was comfortable with being a recruitment consultant at the time. So I'd gone in with myself and one of the directors to go and help what was undone at the time. There was something wrong with the person that was there, and they kind of made a mess of things. So I'd gone in with my director. Probably like we went in on a Wednesday. By Friday, the manager was like, actually, we don't need the director. You can stay. You're fine doing this. And the director was also like, yeah, you're a researcher, yes, for us, but you know how to be a consultant. So just do it, you know? So I was obviously panicking because now I am at a client for the agency that I work for. I can't mess this up. You know, the person they placed there before messed it up. I can't do that. And so high pressure. Everything went well, thankfully. And then I actually got another role at another company, purely because, you know, I had worked there for a bit, but I wasn't earning what the other consultants were earning because I was still earning my researcher salary, right? Because I'm not I'm not hired by the bank. I don't get any perks from the bank, nothing. I'm still getting whatever it is that I'm getting from the agency. And I mean, the consultants are earning double, some triple my salary, And granted, they had more experience, but sure, I mean, like double, triple, that's like a huge gap, So I was very open with my manager at the time, and I said, look, I've gone for an interview for the manager at the bank now. I said, look, I've gone for an interview at this place. I've received an offer. I'm going to take it. I'm just letting you know because, I don't want to leave you sort of in the dust. You guys have been really good to me. I really enjoy working in this team. It's been amazing or whatever. She was like, okay, how long do you have to accept the offer? So I told her a few days, whatever the case is. And she's like, okay, cool. Please don't accept it yet. Give me a few days. I said, fine. She went, she worked her magic, I suppose. And then the bank came back with a counter offer for me to now be transferred to the bank permanently. So now I would get all the perks of the bank, in being an employee of the bank, etc., etc.
Nice.
Now, I usually tell people as a recruitment consultant, don't take a counter offer, but it really depends on the case. Like in this case, I was leaving purely because the financial gains didn't make sense.
The numbers were not numbering.
It just.
I think the numbers were not numbering. The numbers were not numbering in this case.
It was, not at all. Not at all. It was like, no, guys, this is actually not fair. But so yeah, I always say don't accept a counter offer because they'll never treat you the same. But it also depends on what kind of manager you have and my situation was so different. Like I was seconded to a client, so it's not like necessarily that I was leaving the client because I hated it, but I was leaving the agency because I now had the experience of a recruitment consultant, and now another company wanted me that was going to pay me very well. So that's why I actually accepted. I actually then accepted the counter offer from the bank, and I stayed at the bank now as a full-time banking employee. I was mentored by this manager. I will never forget her. She was like amazing. I still talk to her now. It's been like more than 10 years, I guess. Yeah, so she was really amazing, and I really, enjoyed my time at the bank. And then eventually we were going through a restructure at the bank, and I was part of the team, unfortunately, that did a lot of the restructure. It was quite strenuous in that, but it's one of those things. It's part of the job, so literally if you were to and this is what people need to understand as well about recruiters in corporate, and that you could hire someone, let's say a year ago. If this year the CEO changes or leadership changes in the organization, and there's a change in strategy and direction, sometimes things like retrenchments do come up. And what people need to understand is that us as recruiters, we don't have an option to do the retrenchments or not. So I would be facing people that I hired last year and now telling them that there's a restructure and your roles that you need to reapply, etc., etc. I know at the time a lot of people were mad at us, as recruiters and that in the organization, but we didn't see it coming either. We only knew when we were being told that this is going to happen, whether you like it or not, and the change in strategy is coming. That means this is going to happen, and you're going to do this, in the process. So there's a whole recruitment process which goes with it. It's called a Section 189. So there's a lot of stuff, that goes into that, and it's a very, very open and honest, quite transparent sort of process. It's also quite rigid as well. So, it was a lot of evidence-based stuff. So it was like spreadsheets upon spreadsheets upon spreadsheets as to why someone isn't right for the role anymore, like justifications, etc., etc., etc. Because everything needs to be fair, everyone needs to be able to reapply for roles or apply for different roles, apply for promotions, whatever the case is. So went through that process. Then at the end of when we had done a certain area, at the end of that, then it was HR's time to now get restructured. So I, thankfully, I had gone on holiday earlier that year. I went to Thailand. And when I got back from Thailand, which is a whole other story, because when I was in Thailand, I went to a fortune teller and everything she said has come true thus far. But anyway, when I got back from Thailand, I think a month later, I received a email from an agency in the UK that was recruiting for, I'm just going to say it, for an airline in Qatar. Obviously I researched, as that's what I'm used to doing, and I was like, well, there's only one airline, and I had actually just traveled with the airline in Qatar. Everyone will know who it is. I traveled with the airline in Qatar to go to Thailand and back. So I didn't leave the airport or whatever, but I'd seen it and I was like, ooh, who wants to live here? It's like so dusty and hot. Like we literally were sitting in the plane and we're like, yo, the dust, guys, wow. And then when we had to change plane, this heat just hit us in the face. And I was like, no ways, this is not for me.
And you said which month was this?
Like, okay.
You said which month was this?
This wasn't even summer. This was April, end of April, beginning of May. So it wasn't even like hot summer, Qatar summer, So anyway, this agency reached out to me in the UK, said they're looking for someone. I was like, okay, why not? Let's just, have a chat. So then obviously, from an agency side, they were like, no, it's an airline. They can't really tell me. And I was like, I know who it is. I know it's Qatar Airways. It's like one airline in Qatar. Hello, but it's fine. They put me forward. Qatar Airways then liked my profile. They then took me through an interview process. So it is a call first. So they do a phone interview. Then at that time, I don't know if they do it anymore, but anyway, at that time, then they would, depending on your level, they would then fly you to Qatar to do an interview. But the interview process then was like, I had to do a case study before I got there, like presentation sort of thing. I then had to do like a mock interview and an assessment or two, something like that. Yeah. But I remember there was the presentation I had to do beforehand because I had to submit it before I flew there. And then when you get there, they like give you this assessment and then they tell you need to prep for this interview process as well, like a mock interview thing. So I was like, oh my word, this is a lot. But anyway, why not? I honestly didn't think I would get the job at all because I'm like, why would they want little old me from South Africa? I have no international experience, no airline experience. Like, who am I? Like I'm just Wilma, just, doing her thing. So flew to Qatar, but now I flew in like July or June. And that was like killer because that was midsummer. I think it was July. It was midsummer. And as you know, it is blazing hot and the humidity is on like 99%. It's crazy. And I'm not like Joburg is not humid, I'm not like KZN's humid. Yeah. Joburg's not humid at all. So this humidity thing, I was like, no, man, this is really a lot. And then you worry now because you've done research on the Middle East and this, that. And it's like, oh, you must cover this, you must cover that. You're like, what? And now you're thinking this heat that hits you when you get off the plane and you're like, what am I going to wear to the interview now if it's so hot? Not realizing there's obviously aircon everywhere and all that, But yeah, so that's how I guess landed up in Qatar, is that I went through that process, came back home. The 189 was still underway. There was still a restructure. So I was still employed by the bank at the time. There was still a restructure going on. But I then got the job in Qatar. So then I didn't have to complete my process in the restructure. I was like, I'm out. I'm single. I had 2 jobs, which I gave to my sister. But like, I was like, I'm out. I'm out. Like, bye. I'm going to get my international experience. Why not? You know, and I always thought at the back of my mind, I always knew I'd come home. But I thought I'd come home after like 2 years. I was like, 2 years, I'm going there, making money, coming back, and that's it. That's how I ended up in Qatar.
So yeah, so where when do you get that offer, and where were you at that time, especially that this was going on with the bank? Like, how was the reaction as well? I
Yeah,
mean, knowing that you are going through this process. Huh.
I know, right? I was a bit stressed, obviously, because I was now in my late 20s at that time, and I was, I had a few more responsibilities than before, and obviously now you start stressing. I wasn't living with dad anymore. I finally left dad's house, but I wasn't living with dad
Yeah.
anymore at the time. So I was just like, oh my gosh, now I have to go back to dad's house. I just got out, thinking of now I'm not going to have a job and all of that. And so at the time, we didn't have to go to work. So yes, we'd be on standby if there was anything. But because we were affected by the restructure as well, we didn't have to go to work. So I was actually with a friend of mine that we worked together there. I was with her at her house. We're actually having drinks. And I got
Yeah.
an email, and it was my offer. And I was like, there's no way. I said, this has to be a joke. And I like opened it up now again, and I'm like, am I seeing wrong or what? I gave her the phone. I'm like, look, is this for real? She was like, this is for real. You got the job. So then I called my sister, and I called my mom, and I called my dad, and I was like, oh my God, I got the job. And, and then after all that excitement, reality hits you that you're leaving your country. Like,
Yeah.
you can go with suitcases. It's not like you're moving house, with a truck that you can put stuff on, and you're going 30 suitcases. That's it. So then reality hits you, and you're like, sure. Then you think of the visa process. Then you think of starting afresh in a different country. You don't know anybody. You don't know anything. Well, thankfully for me, one of my friend's husband was there. So at least, but still, I hardly saw him. I never saw him, actually. I never saw him. But I was thinking, okay, maybe at least I know that one person. But sure, it's a shock to the system when you actually start packing and you're like, whoa, this is only what I can take for now. So yeah, I mean, it was great. It was amazing. I mean, even when I got the phone call after the phone interview, that they were flying me to Qatar. That was like, whoa. Me and my sister were like screaming on the phone. It was hilarious. But yeah. So it was great. I mean, it was so good. The reactions were actually really great from my parents and my sister. Obviously a bit of sadness because I'll be leaving, but the general feeling was just like excitement and happiness and yay, I'm gonna start a new life. And yeah, that was really like, that was amazing. That feeling was great.
Yeah. Now you land in Qatar for a job. It was still summer, right? It was not many months between
No,
the interview and the actual
there was a
landing.
few months.
The job.
No, there was a few months. So I got my offer only in September, I think. Yeah. So from July to September, I was like in limbo.
Yeah.
And then I flew in November. Yeah, November. That's when I started. So it was
Okay.
winter, if you could call it that.
Yeah. Qatar winter, right? Yeah.
Qatar winter.
Yeah. So then you learned this time is not just 1 or 2 days that you came for an interview. This is now coming to stay. What were the culture shocks? Was it what you expected in terms of now coming to live in the country? Just take us through that. You're a new person in the country. How was that experience?
Mm. Well, firstly, the first thing that shocked me was at the airport. And I think it was more of a shock when I went for the interview, is because like the men would wear their traditional the thobe, right? So for people that don't know, it's like it looks like a long white dress, you know, and the little thing they wear on the top. Sorry, I don't know the correct terms for the top part, but the bottom I know it's a thobe. So that was my first shock going there, and then all the ladies in like their black and hair covered. But I think for me it was more of a shock that not all the hair was covered. So like in South Africa, the Muslim ladies cover quite, fully. The ones that wear the hijab, they cover quite fully. But there, they kind of like show a little bit, it's kind of that's like how they wear their dress there, is that you can still see a little bit of hair. But other than that, they're all covered and stuff. I think that was a shocker when I went for the interview. And then I just got hit with it again when I landed. Now I'm coming to live there. And so the process was nice getting in and all that, great stuff. The company drove me to my accommodation. So that was fine. I think the next day, because then I had to obviously read the whole, because they send you all this information before you start, right? And then I had to read like what I can wear, what I can't wear, etc. So you have to cover your knees, as a lady, the corporate wear, cover your knees, cover your shoulders. I think it was. It's not necessarily your elbows, but like cover your shoulders and cover your knees. But I didn't have to, contrary to what people believe, you don't have to wear a hijab and you don't have to wear an abaya as a foreigner going to, the Middle East. So yeah, I think that was like the first shocker, that I can't now wear my sleeveless. Because in corporate here we can wear a sleeveless top and then you just throw a jacket on for when you go for meetings or whatever, and then when you're not in the meeting at your desk you take it off and it's fine. But there you have to, and you can't wear jeans, so there's no like Friday jeans and sneakers to work. No such thing there. Like you have to wear corporate all the time. That was from an office environment. And then when I wanted to go and have a drinky drink, you can't just go to the bottle store and buy alcohol. I know, like our drinks, I just wanted a nice glass of wine. And then I was also scared of, because at the time I was still smoking. I was also scared, like, where can I smoke? Where can't I smoke? Like, it was such a thing. Because when you work, you can't smoke in a certain area. You have to smoke somewhere else. And then you have to take off your access card and wada. So I get it for brand purposes, etc. I get it.
Mhm.
But it was just a shock because, at the bank, I used to go get my coffee, take out my cigarette, stand in front of the building, smoke, have my coffee, have, my morning chats with my fellow smokers, and it was fine. You didn't worry about removing this and can't stand here, have to stand there. It was just, yeah. So that was another thing. And then, unfortunately, so this was the craziest thing. So 3 days after I landed, I got really sick. Like, I didn't realize it, but I had gallbladder stones. So I got really sick and I landed up in the hospital. Now, the hospital, I was like, what is happening? Because at the hospital, there is a section for citizens and non-citizens. So residents, citizens, male, female. Like, I was like, what do you mean? But I'd gone with the ambulance, so I didn't quite realize until I was inside, and I'm like, what do you mean there's a section for men and there's a section for women? What does this mean? Like, what is happening here? So yeah, I mean that was a huge shock for me. So firstly, getting sick 3 days after landing is the worst experience ever. And then I went to like what they would call a public hospital there, but it's very nice. The public hospitals are not like our public hospitals here. So it was very nice and whatever, but I was just shocked by the fact that like men have to stay that side and women have to stay that side, and only like small male children were allowed, small boys, like to see their moms if they were sick or whatever. But I didn't stay overnight. Like I didn't stay, 4 days, but just that's what I saw at the time. And I then went to my colleagues and friends and I was just like, what is this? Like this doesn't make sense to me, Another thing that shocked me was when we went, because you have to like get your Qatar ID and all that process as well. Because I was the only woman who started that time. So I was in a bus full of men and it was me. And I think most of the guys were kind of used to it, but thankfully I'd made a friend, like we landed at the same time and we're joining the same team. We literally sat like facing each other at our desks and stuff. So he was also on the bus and I was just telling him like, oh my gosh, like there's all the guys and there's no women in the bus. And then the driver was like, no, I have to go this side and the guys have to go that side. And I was like, but why? We're doing the same thing, aren't we? Like we're all going for ID. He's like, no, ma'am, this is how it works here. And I was like, oh. And then and this is also now a public place, just like the public hospital. This is like it's like almost like our home affairs kind of thing, So it's a public building. So you also have to dress conservatively at those public buildings. So like men can't wear shorts, women can't wear short dresses. It's that sort of thing as well. So I was like, okay. Then I was stuck with all on my lonesome as a woman on my own on one side, and all the guys that we had traveled with were on the other side. Excuse me. And then all the ladies, like it was, I almost say it's like we were like a herd of cattle, we're like you all just being shoved to go this way. And then it's a language barrier because you're just like, I don't know what they're saying. The accent, you can't quite hear it yet. They don't speak English fully. And then it's like you're being shoved to this room to do x-rays. You're being shoved to that room. And they just... I was like, jeez, it's like a herd of cattle just being moved from place to place. But yeah, that was also shocking for me because I'm like, wow, I'm really not at home anymore. So those are like things I would say. I was like, I really was rethinking my life. I'm like, do I really want to live like this forever? This is crazy. And then on the entertainment side as well, like I mentioned, drink, you can't just go to the bottle store. Then you have to go to restaurants, in hotels, then you can have your glass of wine or whatever. And also the wine they stock is just not, no, it's and in South Africa we spoiled, right? So we have really good wine, and I think I was quite stubborn in that I didn't want to taste any other wine from other countries because it's my home has the best wines and all of that. And so like there was a wine called, I think it's called Table Mountain or something like that, and I'm like, I've never heard of this wine in South Africa before. I've never seen it at the shop, but that's the one that they all stocked in the hotels there. So and sometimes you'd have a Niederberg or whatever, like you'd be lucky, but yeah, that's where you could get. And if you wanted to buy, you have to apply for an alcohol license. And also in the bottle store, which is why you need an alcohol license. In the bottle store, they also sell meat that is not of a cow or sheep, etc. So it's pork that they do allow you to buy. But there's a very clear sign that says non-Muslims only. When you're in the bottle store by the pork section, it's written like properly, So yeah, I mean, you have to get a license in order to buy pork and alcohol at the bottle store, and you have to when I first got there, you didn't have to make an appointment to get your stuff. That only came with COVID, but yeah, you could just walk in, and so it wasn't too bad. It was like, okay, it's fine. But then obviously with COVID came appointments and social distancing, etc., etc. And I was like, oh, because now you have to plan that, okay, on this day, I've got to go at this time. So it's almost like buying your monthly grocery. You go to the bottle store as well. But shame, they didn't
So,
they added an
so
extra store. Yep, go ahead.
yeah. So, in relation to the license, for you to apply for a license, did your employer had to approve the license, and how was that? How was the process? What
Oh,
was the
yes.
process to get the license, alcohol and pork license?
Oh, it's so funny. So for that, yeah, crazy. Every time I tell people this, they think I'm crazy for doing this. But anyway, so for your alcohol license, you have to earn a certain salary, firstly, and then you also have to request a letter from your employer to say that, yes, this is how much you earn, and they are allowing you to, it's fine, you can get that license. So you need to take that letter and your ID, and I think your proof of residence or something like that, and then you take it to the offices, they process everything, and then they give you a card, which is your license, your liquor license. Yes.
Okay, no, that's interesting. That is very much interesting. So, you go ahead with your life, all those shocks, and then obviously you're working. How was the corporate experience for you?